Not sure quite what happened there. But, all right. Didn't break anything, at least. Please stand by. Well, I pour myself a cup of coffee. And good day, everyone. I'd say good morning, but it's already afternoon, even in Spokane. I slept 9.5 hours last night. After breakfast, I lay down again. I didn't sleep, but I felt like I could take a nap, so I must be catching up from the extended period of visiting and partying. Finally got my eyes wide open now and enough coffee to bring you the 1966 stats update. We're going to take a look at some of the numbers through Sunday, June the 12th in our full season 1966 replay. How's everybody doing? Hope your weekend is going well. Spokane Steve here, of course, from a cool and overcast Spokane. Had some light rain early this morning. Very pleasant now. Supposed to warm up again starting tomorrow, but I think the heat wave's pretty much behind us. What else have we got? I can't think of much else. Let's get right to it. I'm going to move the camera over and we'll take a look at the stats. Coffee, the Blue Sail Inn cup. That, of course, is a hotel in Morro Bay. What else? All right, make sure we're square there. And let's move this over. I already dropped this once. Hopefully I didn't do any damage. There's Mookie. Mookie, what are you looking at there, huh? Birds. He's looking at the birds. Okay. Well, let's see what we have to do to make this how I want it. That could be good. Let's take a look at it here. It always takes me a while to set this up because I'm not used to this angle. Let's see, I wonder if the light would be better. Block out my shadow if nothing else. Yeah, I think that is better. Alrighty. Let's take a look at it, starting out with the American League standings. Okay, let's make sure I've got everything in frame here. I noticed last time I did one of these was a little out of whack. That's slightly. All right, get the corner of it in there. This makes it harder for me to read, but I think it provides a better picture for you guys. That's what's important. Hello there, Cosmo. Hi, Franklin. All right, American League standings. Orioles, of course, in first, 38-18. Actual won-loss totals at the far right, and the actual to-date won-loss. So in other words, we can see that at this point in the season in real life, the Orioles had 36 wins. They have 38. Twins, the overachiever in the American League so far. They're 7 wins ahead of their pace at this point, in second, 3 games back, and the Indians hanging in there. They're actually 4 games below their pace, and they ended up at 500. As Mookie leaps to the top of the tower, he may have heard him. Well, welcome, Eric Bailey. Glad to have you. Nice. So the 24 cards, basically, right? Kansas City, still 5 games over their real-life pace, tied for 4th with the Detroit Tigers. Of course, we know that the fall is coming for Kansas City, at least statistically. You never know till you roll the dice, of course. White Sox are 1 game off of their real-life pace. I don't have the right pointer. I usually get the pen that's dry. That way, if I accidentally touch anything, I won't get ink on it. The baseball bat pen. Been dry for years, but I kept it. It has Maury Wills on it. Best wishes, Maury Wills. Okay. Where was I? White Sox 1 game off their pace. The Angels have underperformed, but actually they're only 2 games off of their real-life pace. Red Sox exceeding their real-life pace by 4 games. Washington Senators 2 games. And the Yankees, who had the worst record in the league that year, are actually underperforming by 7 games. It's really hard to say that a last-place team is underperforming. The fact of the matter is they are. Let's see if I want to go to the league leaders first. Now let's take a look at the National League standings, then we'll go back to that. The Dodgers, who recently had an 11-game win streak snapped by the Giants in first place, they are 3 games ahead of their real-life pace. Pirates and Phillies tied for second. For the Pirates, they're exactly at their real-life pace. The Phillies 1 game ahead of that. 4th place is the Astros, just over 500 and 2 games below their real-life pace. And they finished at 444, so in real life they apparently collapsed. The Cardinals 1 game over their real-life pace, as are the Braves. We've been looking at the Braves as an underachiever. They're actually 1 game ahead of the pace that would see them finish with 85 wins, so still hope for Atlanta. Reds are 2 games ahead of their pace. The Giants, the big underachiever in either league. They're 10 games off of their real-life pace. I can't explain it. The Cubs, as bad as they are actually 5 games ahead of their real-life pace, and the Mets, as bad as they've been, are only 1 game off of their real-life pace. All right, and then we can go to where I like to go next is to the newspaper-style recap, where you get a condensed version of the standings, and you get the top 5 in several categories. Batting average, of course. There's Gene Alley still leading the majors with a .378 average. What a year it's been for Gene Alley so far. Ron Santo at .363, Felipe Alou, Jerry Buchek still hanging in there, another overperforming card, and Jimmy Wynn 5th in batting. Now, you guys that play Strat know, I'm sure, that generally speaking, hitters' cards that have a lot of walks on them, like Jimmy Wynn, Joe Morgan, usually don't match their batting average. There's too many walks on the card. But in this case, Wynn has defied the odds. As hot as he's been, I've got to think he's going to come down to earth a bit. This is just amazing. On the other hand, if you look at the standard differential broadcast, 1 season, I mean, anything can happen. In the home run category, Hank Aaron's still towering above everyone with 22, although it feels like it's been a while since he's hit one, doesn't it? Jimmy Wynn was 17, Willie Mays 16, Dick Allen now 13, and he missed a lot of games. others tied with 12. And RBIs win atop with 65. Win is actually in Triple Crown running. Wow. Hank Aaron, 54. Joe Torre, Bill White, 48. Willie Mays, 44. In wins, it's Koufax with 12. Bob Gibson and Juan Marichal with 10. And those are your top 3 in the Cy Young voting so far. Jim Bunning and Bob Veal have 8 wins apiece. In saves, it's Billy McCool with 14. Ted Abernathy, the often maligned Claude Rameau, and Phil the Vulture Regan with 11. Others tied with 9. In earned run average, it's Koufax, Marichal, Bunning, Veal, and Sutton. This brings me to another point, which I'm going to address here shortly. Current hitting streaks, Gene Oliver and Willie Davis have 10-game streaks, although Oliver hasn't played in a while. We've got quite a stolen base race between Maury Wills and Lou Brock. In strikeouts, Koufax way out in front with 119, Bob Gibson 96, Jim Maloney 95, Jim Bunning 89, and Juan Marichal. So look at the stats for Marichal and Gibson, okay? And then we go to the awards voting. Koufax, Gibson, Marichal. I do not understand how Gibson can be ahead of Marichal. Okay, they both have the same record. Marichal has a much better ERA and a better whip. So I don't get it. I don't know how they figure that. They get points for, it's a point accumulation thing, obviously, of some kind. Let's see. American League, here we go. We find Leon Wagner of the Indians atop the batting race now. Harmon Killebrew second, Boog Powell third, Al Kaline, Jim Fregosi rounding out the top 5. Frank Robinson leads the league in home runs with 17. Rick Reichart 15. Boog Powell, Fred Whitfield, and Willie Horton with 14 home runs. In RBIs, Harmon Killebrew with 50, Frank Robinson 45, Brooks Robinson 40, and Whitfield 38. In wins, 3-way tie with Jim Palmer, Dean Chance, and Sam McDowell, all with 8. Stu Miller of Baltimore leads with 13 saves. Larry Sherry and Jack Aker have a dozen apiece. Bob Lee and Ron Klein with 8. Tiant leading in ERA now, 1.76, slightly over McDowell, who was leading. He's at 1.81 now. Dave Boswell third. Steve Barber in fourth, and John Buzzhart of the White Sox in 5th place. Tommy Agee has a 23-game current hitting streak. Tommy Agee has really turned his season around, hasn't he? Don Buford leading in steals. Another good race there. Campaneris 18, Agee 16. Sam McDowell, Sudden Sam, way out in front in the strikeout department with 105. Pete Rickard, 87. Earl Wilson and Denny McLean, 75. Yeah, hi, World's Worst and Astros, if I didn't mention you already. You're absolutely right. And to me, this is one of the fun things, actually, are the discrepancies. If you played a replay and everything was exactly as it was, I mean, to me, what fun would that be? Let's check their awards voting so far. McDowell, Tiant, Frank Robinson leading in the MVP voting. We're going to take a look at the first grand totals, the team stats. Baltimore and Minnesota leading in batting, just 1 point apart. And they are also the runs scored leaders, 1 and 2. Detroit third in runs. The White Sox, despite being 4th in batting, are ninth in runs scored. Only the Senators have scored fewer. So behind the top four, the next total would be the Angels with 246 runs. In the home run department, Cleveland Indians have hit 71. That leads. Tigers with 68. No real surprises here. Orioles in third with 65, and the Twins with 62, tied with the Angels, who have 62. Pitching, it's Minnesota and Washington atop the league, 3.38 team ERA. Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore round out the top five. Detroit has scored a lot, but you can see what's held them back. They're last in the league in pitching. The Yankees have also not pitched well. I keep grabbing the wrong mouse here, bear with me. Go over to the National League. Not at all surprising to see the Pirates with a 288 average atop the heap. But it's the Houston Astros who lead in runs scored. I would kind of expect them to lead in home runs, but of course they don't. It's the Atlanta Braves with 68, paced by Aaron's 22, almost a third of the team's homers by Mr. Henry Aaron. So you've got 308, Atlanta in second in scoring, 303, the Astros and the Braves. Then the Pirates at 285. The Phillies at 272 and the Dodgers 262, despite being seventh in batting average. And they don't hit a lot of home runs. The 42, the second lowest total in the league. The Mets with only 28 homers. The Mets just anemic offensive totals across the board. Dodgers, not surprisingly, leading an ERA with an impressive 2.94. What's their strikeout rate? Well, it pales compared to today's game, doesn't it? Modern day teams will have more strikeouts than innings. The Giants are second in earned run average. Now, looking at the Giants, when I first started to notice them underachieving, my first thought was they're not hitting enough. I'm sorry, that with their lineup, they're not pitching enough. In fact, the exact opposite is true. They are pitching, but they're next to last in batting, and with 207 runs scored, only the Reds and the Mets have scored fewer. So their problem has been offense. Doesn't make much sense. We're going to try to make sense of that after I run through the leaders and take a closer, in-depth look at the Giants. Right, outliers. Hello, Jeffrey. Yeah, I like this. I love the stats. I can't believe I started this replay without them and then played catch-up to get them all in there. It's a lot of fun. Okay, we've got the totals. What else have we got? Here's all the league leaders. Some of these, of course, we've seen the top five in the newspaper style recap. There's the rest of the batting leaders. There's Frank Robinson at 307. He's got a ways to go, but he's certainly not out of the batting race. And since he's leading in home runs and second in RBIs, he's in line. Oh, right, Bob. Thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot. I'm glad you're here. Unfortunately, we will not be able to get the X chances. That's the one thing you cannot enter manually. Here we go. I guess it's the fielding totals. Here's the American League defense. And they're not in order, interestingly enough. I think that's kind of odd. The field, you'd think they'd sort this by fielding percentage, but they don't. I'm not sure what they sorted by. It looks like it's strictly alphabetical. Uh-huh. So who's fielding the best percentage? That's the Detroit Tigers, 982. Second would be the Yankees and Baltimore at 979. Assists, the Senators and the Angels. Who has controlled the running game the best? That would be the Tigers and the Twins. Opponent's stolen base percentage. Feel free to chime in there, Bob. Yankees have 10 outfield assists. That leads. Who's turned the most double plays? By far, it's the Orioles. Not surprising with that double play combo, is it? Actually, it's Washington that controls the running game the best. Who gets run on? The Red Sox. And then the Orioles. Here's the National League. Top fielding percentage is 980 by the Phillies. It's bunched pretty close, though, in the National League. Cubs 979, Braves, Reds 978. St. Louis really could, nobody runs on St. Louis for some reason. 4-4. Opponents stolen bases, opponents caught stealing. McCarver, -1. He's a good catcher, but I mean, there's better. The Pirates have been run on with great success. And everybody runs on the Giants. 31 opponent steals. Double plays. Pirates with 60. Again, that's no surprise. They got the Gold Glove medal infield. 59 for the Cubs with Beckert and Kessinger. 57 for the Braves with everybody's favorite Woody Woodward. I had to throw that in there. The Braves 11 outfield assists. Yeah, it's too bad we can't see. I don't even think you can get it here. Board game breakdowns. Yeah, they don't even have the strat fielding here because you can't enter the X chart. That'd be fun to see. One thing I look at in keeper leagues is my X chart percentage. It's what it sounds like. It's what percentage of X plays your team turns into outs. Frank Robinson also leads in runs scored. Pal, Killebrew, Reichert, and Cash round out the top 5. Joe Fregosi leading in doubles with 18. Bernie Allen, Frank Robinson, Tony Conigliaro, Yastrzemski, Dick Green all with 15. Bobby Knopp with 9 triples. Tartable and Northrup with an impressive 7. Here's the rest of your home run and RBI leaders. So after Horton, George Scott, Jackie Warner, Rocky Colavito, Harmon Killebrew all with 13. We saw the top 4 in RBIs. The 5 spot is a 3-way tie between Kurt Blefary, Boog Powell, and Willie Horton. Killebrew leading in walks. Of course, as always, you can pause this and take your time with any column later. I find most people will watch the stat update as a video rather than live. That's fine, it'll be up there. Intentional walks, which you guys know, I don't issue a lot of intentional walks. Frank Robinson with 6. Tony Oliva with 10 hit by the pitch. Knopf leading in strikeouts, 56. Sacrifice hits, mostly pitchers. In fact, all pitchers in the American League. There's stolen bases again. Agee with the highest hitting streak in the league, in either league so far, and it's active. He's got a current 23-game streak going. Yastrzemski has a current 12-game, signified by the asterisk. Pinch hitting average. Here we go, slugging and on base. Powell and Frank Robinson at the top in slugging. Kurt Blefary also makes the leaders, so 3 Orioles among the slugging percentage leaders. Killebrew, Kaline, Boog Powell, Frank Robinson, and Joe Foy in the on-base leaders. There's your top 5. So the OPS, 4 over 1,000. It's Powell leading the way, Killebrew close behind, Frank Robinson and Al Kaline, Rick Reichart 5th. Runs created, kind of a weird one. I don't care much about that. Let's go down to errors. Fregosi with 14 errors. Brinkman, Elvis, Petrocelli, and Versailles. So 4 of the 5 are shortstops. Max Alvis, a third baseman. Pitching wins. We've seen the top 3 with 8. Siebert, Lolich, Mudcat, Grant, Cott, and Pasquale with 7. Mel Stottlemyre with 9 losses. There's the rest of your ERA leaders. We've seen the top 5. Denny McLain in 6th. McCormick, Pasquale, Marcelino Lopez, Fred Talbot still up there. Dave McNally, Fritz Peterson. Thank you, World's Worst. Some good input there. Innings pitched. Games pitched. Complete games, Tiant and Cott with half a dozen. McDowell and Siebert and McLean with 5. There's the rest of the save leaders. As well as save percentage. Hoyt Wilhelm, Larry Sherry have not blown a save. That's interesting. Well, with the trade of Eddie Fisher to the Orioles, it looks to me like Wilhelm will take over the closing role for the White Sox, most likely. In shutouts, of course, we covered this the other day when Marichal threw his 4th, Pasquale leading the AL with 3. 5 pitchers have thrown 2 shutouts. Strikeouts, we saw the top 5. Olich, Cott, Boswell, Barber, Palmer, Tiant, McNally, Hunter. Jumping over to the National League. Hello there, Frank. Quite a few live in here for this one. Again, we saw the top 5 in hitting. 6th is Joe Torre at 330. Adolfo Phillips, Charlie Smith. He was discussed yesterday too. The man traded for Roger Maris after this season, right? McCarver, Beckert, Matty Alou, Sonny Jackson. In runs scored, Joe Morgan and Jimmy Wynn, teammates, atop the list. Felipe Alou, Wes Parker, Roberto Clemente round out the top 5. In hits, Felipe Alou with 89. I think he leads in extra base hits, too. He leads in triples. Second in doubles. Clemente leads in doubles. Alou, Phillips, Lou Johnson with 16. Gene Alley with 15. Alou with 9 triples. Tim McCarver, a catcher, with 7 triples. You don't see that every day. Joe Morgan, Willie Davis, Wes Parker with 5 triples. Here's the rest of the home run and RBI leaders. After Dick Allen, it would be Santo, Billy Williams, teammates, Stargell and Hart, all with a dozen. Clendenon and McCovey have 11. Just outside of the top 5 in RBIs, Ron Santo and Rusty Staub. Joe Morgan, the walking machine, atop the walks category. 53 walks. Good gravy. Intentional walks, Aaron and Jimmy Wynn with 5. Well, that kind of figures, doesn't it? Strikeouts, there's our old friend Byron Brown, the king of the K. Lou Johnson's been plunked 9 times. Felipe 7. Adolfo, Phillips, and Gentile 6 apiece. And sacrifice hits in the American League. There's actually 2 non-pitchers on the list, Sonny Jackson and Gene Alley. There's the rest of your stolen base leaders. We saw the top 5. Maury Wills had a 20-game hitting streak. Slugging and on base. Wynn, Mays, Santo, Clendenon 4th in slugging. That causes a little bit of a surprise. Lefevre, Felipe Alou. Hang on a second. Did I pass? No, I didn't pass it. Gene Alley slugging .541. A lot of that's batting average, of course. Reminding me of Branch Rickey's stat, isolated power. Which was what? Slugging minus batting average. Sano way in front. Yeah, Mays in double plays. You're right, World's Worst. That surprises me as well. On the other hand, I'll throw out a little number for you. The spot in the lineup that grounds into the most double plays is the 3 spot as a whole. How about that? So when you're talking about lineup construction and the spots that hit into the fewest double plays, 5 and 8. So a lot of it's, as you said, it's about opportunity. The number 3 hitter to start a game often comes up with a runner on in less than 2 outs. OPS, it's Sano leading the way, Wynn in second. That's kind of a surprise. Was despite all of Wynn's great numbers, it's Sano with the higher OPS. Of course, he towers in on-base percentage. Alley, Morgan, Torrey, and Wynn round out the top 5. OPS, Sano, Wynn, Mays, Alley, and Felipe Alou. And then let's go down to the total bases. And this I did know. Felipe Alou leading in total bases. Oh, sure, he's not in the home run leaders, but with the doubles, the triples, and the average, yeah. He's strong in every extra base hit category. Errors, now it's Boyer and Hunt and Fuentes have caught up with Jerry Buchek. Of course, Buchek hasn't been playing short in a while, right? What is the difference between a regular hit and a bunt? But what would be slugging? Slugging is simply total bases divided by at bats. So on a bunt, a sacrifice bunt, you don't get a total base. You didn't get to first, right? Pitching, we've seen the top 5 in wins. There's Blasingame and Sutton with 7. Tony Cloninger with 8 losses has the most. Earned run average, we saw the top 3 or so, I think. Koufax, Marichal, Bunning, Sutton. And here you go. Look at Marichal compared to Gibson. They both have 10. They're both 10 and 3. And yet Gibson's ahead of Marichal in the Cy Young voting. So this one's a head scratcher to me. I don't know how they figure out that Cy Young voting. Clearly, Marichal's had the better season. Apologies to Gibson, but I mean, he has. Complete games, Koufax has 9, Gibson and Marichal 8. So they have the same number to complete games. Bunning 7, Short with 6 rounds out the top 5. We saw the top 4 in saves. 5th is a tie between Roy Face and Frank Lindsay. Billy McCool leading in save percentage. There's Marichal with the 4 shutouts. Koufax, Bunning, Short, and Veal with 2. And there's the rest of the strikeout leaders. We saw the top 5. Sutton, Veal, Short, Bolin, LeMaster, Sammy Ellis, Don Drysdale. Well, it's not how many bases you advance the other runners. The slugging is how many bases you gain, like 1 on a single, 2 on a double, 3 on a triple, 4 on a home run. A walk does not count, even though you got a base. The walk does count towards your on-base percentage, but not towards your slugging. That's one reason why OPS has become such a popular single stat, because it's on base plus slugging, so it takes both into account. The one thing it also does that I don't agree with is it counts the batting average twice, so it can be slightly inaccurate, but it's a pretty good overall number. I mean, if your OPS is over 900, you're having a hell of a year. Anything else anybody wants to see? Hello there, Al. You agree with the batting average twice thing, yeah. The same with the runs created. Runs created that model tends to skew towards higher on base percentage. Which part of that is rational, as the player with the higher on base percentage is making fewer outs. So this is something mostly for Cosmo. I'm going to say this now. This is one of the most overlooked things in the game, and it still is. You don't have a clock in baseball. You have 27 outs. Every time you make an out, you don't get that back. Well, you could try that, Cosmo. You might have fun. Can't hurt to give it a shot. ISO is what? Isolated power? Yeah, we tend to like the guys with the power, Al, but again, the still undercounted thing about the high on base guys, they're making fewer outs. That's why double plays are so big. One batter's making 2 outs. You only get 27 outs. And this is another reason why in modern times a sacrifice bunt has gone by the wayside, because nobody wants to give up an out anymore to move a runner one base. Anyway, I think I've covered about everything. Oh, we were going to look at, yeah, hang on. I didn't. There's one thing I was going to cover. We were going to take a closer look at the San Francisco Giants. 15-14 at home. It's on the road where they've been awful. Also unable to beat lefty starters. You could say the same thing for the Dodgers, though, who struggle against left-handed pitching. But they've been outscored, and there's their average runs per game. They are just not scoring, and you think, how is that possible with that lineup? Okay, Davenport's hitting, Hart's hitting, Mays is hitting, McCovey could be doing better, Fuentes isn't doing much, and then the rest of the lineup's doing basically nothing. So what you really have here is a 4-man offense. Haller should be hitting much better. He's not contributing much at all. Jesus Alou should be doing better. Ollie Brown, while a great defensive right fielder, is contributing almost nothing on offense. Neither is Hal Lanier. And the other outfielders, Landrum and Cap Peterson. So their problem is purely offensive. They're second in the league in ERA. They've got Marichal leading the way. Herbal's pitched well. Perry, who's coming back to the rotation, I think he starts their next game, in fact, or the one after that. Boland's been fine. You've got a strong starting 3 there. They did trade Cepeda for Sadecki. They knew they needed another starter. That's why they made that trade. Sadecki has done nothing to help this team. And Lindsay, the closer, he has 9 saves, but has he been effective? 34 hits in 19 innings? That card is better than that. McDaniel with a good card has not performed. So Marichal, Perry, and Boland basically have carried the pitching staff. Shaw was traded, I think. Was Shaw traded? Good strikeout to walk ratio guys with few at bats are doing. Yeah, well, I don't think plate discipline really comes into play in this game. There was a guy who did a study in the online forums of teams with the difference of ground ball to fly ball ratio. And this, of course, is in the modern era, not 1966. He did conclude there was a slight advantage to a higher fly ball ratio rather than a ground ball ratio. I've found that players with small number of at-bats that don't have any walks on their card can fluke out, excuse the analogy there, and get more hits. because everything on their card's a hit, even though they might have a low on base. If they get hot and roll the hits, they're going to pile up some hits. This doesn't explain Jimmy Wynn, who I think is probably one of the big outliers in this whole thing, because you've got a card here that batted .256 and walked a ton. He didn't really walk a ton, though, did he? Not by his standards. Only 41 walks that year. So his walk chances against righties, 11-12 against right-handers, 10 against left-handers. You can also look at the bar chart, which you can't see on the card. Although how they figure that for ballpark, I do not know. It must be on the average. I'll leave that up for a second. You can do that for any player on the Windows game. So he doesn't have a ton of walks, but I mean against right-handers in particular, that's really not a lot of hits. Yeah, like a contact hitter, Cosmo, a guy that doesn't strike out much. Those guys tend to put the ball in play. They also, with few exceptions, don't usually hit for much power. Probably the great exception to that would be Joe DiMaggio, a power hitter who rarely struck out. But you don't see that much. He's an anomaly. As was Vlad Guerrero Sr., the best bad ball hitter by far in the history of the game. That guy would hit pitches off the ground. He had no plate discipline and hit everything everywhere. He drove pitchers crazy because he didn't know how to pitch him. They used to say the best thing is just to throw him one down the middle. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stat update. And before I go, I want to thank everybody again for the subscriptions. I'm up to just 12 subscribers shy now of the magic 500 mark, and thanks again to everyone for that. I do appreciate it. Join me tomorrow for Angels at White Sox, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. Until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.